Honestly. Okay, hands down. Don't ever say that something could be boring because look at me. It's up to you to make it exciting. I was thinking, you look at that wall has blocks. Take this hall right here. I'm going to do the same story as I did with the last video. Hall. Honestly. Okay, hands down. Don't ever say that something could be boring because look at me. It's up to you to make it exciting. I was thinking, you look at that wall has blocks. Take this hall right here. I'm going to do the same story as I did with the last video. Hall. You may look at that column and think nothing about it. What about it? It's plain. It's boring. It's a wall. And it's kind of color beige. But what if you walk by there and your shoe was untied and you bent down to tie your shoe and you put your hand on the wall to get your balance and you touch one of those blocks and the block moved backwards? What if you went up, you touched it and it slid back and over and you looked inside and there was a kid inside looking out at you? Hey, what if that kid looks at you and he's like, what was the story? He looks at you and asks you, who are you? And you're like, who am I and who are you? And he says, we live in here. You're like, you live in the wall? He says, yes. You're like, no, you're on the outside. He said, no, look inside. You get down and you look inside that wall. The more I think about it, this would make such a good story. Inside that column is hollow. And what if the kid was standing on a ladder? He starts going down the ladder, and you're yelling, wait a minute, where are you going? You turn your head sideways, and you look through the wall. Then you look down the ladder, and the ladder is actually going down under your school through a hole in the ground, and it goes down to a tunnel. Down in the tunnel, you see kids walking back and forth with flashlights. And you yell down to them, what are you guys doing down there? And one of those kids walking by looks up at you and says, man, we've been under here for 100 years. Tell me this, could that make a good mystery story? All right, tell me this, is it boring to write about that wall now? So, if that's not boring to write about, look at me. Do me a favor, open your eyes, and everything you look at becomes another story, the fan. What if you got locked in here one night? How about you doing laps in the gym and you got kind of tired and you ran over here and you sat on the stage just for a second and you closed your eyes and you fell asleep. You woke up later on and you looked around, the gym was empty. You stumbled down onto the ground. Use those words carefully. Find those colorful words, power words. I love adjectives, words to describe. You run across the room. You hit the door, run, and the door's locked. You back up and you look around and you realize it's got to be late because as you look outside, you see a storm approaching and you realize it's nighttime. Set the time. You look at your watch and it's midnight. What would you do if you heard something outside the building? You look up there and in that fan, you see those vents begin to open and you look up in there and you can see these green slanted eyes looking down at you. What if a long green nail came through that fan and it pointed right down at you? And turned over, motioning for you to come closer. You start edging towards it, and it lifts its head and whispers, either you're coming up or we're coming in after you. You ask we, it says look behind you. You turn around and look, and in every one of those vents, they begin opening, and you can see eyes looking in. How about this? As the storm approaches, start being descriptive. Rain begins to fall on the ceiling so hard it sounds like sledgehammers. As the vents are open, you see lightning shooting across the sky sideways so bright it's blinding. What would you do if suddenly lightning knocked the lights out and it suddenly went dark? Tell me this. Could that make a good scary story? All right. Now, if you can look at a fan and make up the next best-selling scary book, or you can look at a block in a wall and make up the next best-selling mystery series of the kids that live on your school, you can write about anything. So I always think ahead of time, and then I start those stories. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
How long does it take to write a book?
How long does it take to write a book? Okay, check this out. First book took me 1 year to write. Second book took me 10 about 20, 25 times. No one thought I could ever write it, including myself. In fact, you've heard the story. Look at this. And don't ever forget this. You may not get your story right the first time. The first time I wrote mine, I sent it in. I asked the company, will you please make it into a book? They sent it back and said, no. I made mistakes every page. Instead of giving up, I wrote my story a second time. I sent it back in again and asked, will you please publish it now? No. I wrote it a third time. Third time, by the way, I did not rewrite my story. I revised it. Look at me. Your teacher tells you to write your story again. Don't write the same thing the same way. Punch it up. Make it more exciting. Be more descriptive. More colorful words, power words, adjectives, words that describe. Hey, third time, my story was more interesting. I sent it in. What do you think they said? No. I said I will try to do it one more time, but 4, no more. And I told everybody, if they say no this time, I quit forever. 4th time, I really took my time. I tried to choose every word very carefully because every word should count. I sent in my story. I even crossed my fingers. I asked, will you please publish it now? 2 months later, they wrote me back. What do you think they said? They said no. That time I was so mad, threw away my story, and I said, you know what? I quit, and I quit forever. 1 year later, my sister looked at me. My sister started laughing. She's like, where's that story you were writing? I said, I threw it away. She looks at me and asks me, why did you do that? I said, because I had to write it 4 times. She says, well, I just read it. Dr. Seuss had to write his first story 27 times. And as I told the last group, I felt like a fool. I mean, think about it. I can complain about 4. 4 that seems so bad. He wrote his 27 times in a row. 26 of those times they told him no. But did he give up? No. He wrote it that 27th time. They said, yes, I was going to quit after 4. I don't think so. Do you know I wrote it a 5th time, 6th time, 7th time, and 8th time, and they said no every time. But the 9th time I wrote it, they said yes. Now think about it. That book, hardest thing I ever did, 9 times I sent it in, threw it away about 20, 25 times, but I wrote it. That book took 10 minutes. It's more popular, and I make more money. When those 2 books came out, I was asked which was my favorite. Which do you think I chose, the easy one or the hard one? Who says, I did pick one. Who says the hard one? Raise their hand. You know what? I chose the hard one. All right, you guys ready for something scary? Get ready. I joke about a lot of things, but I do not joke about this. If you get a little scared, hold on to your friend's arm. We understand. And by the way, there is nothing bad in this book. But if it grosses you out too much, cover your ears. Here we go. I had, oh, by the way, if you're getting a book today, before I forget to tell y'all, look at me. You don't have to buy a book at all. If you do decide you want one, today we're doing the autograph signing, and you go stay here for a book or a bookmark, and I'm going to sign it, I put your name in there. You'd ask if you've got your money today. I am going to come back in the morning at 8:30. For some of you who just do decide you want to get a book after today, you don't have to buy a book. But if you do want one, the books are $7, the bookmarks are $1. And if you get it today or tomorrow morning, not after that. If you get it, I'll sign it and put your name in there. Just don't read the scary book before you go to bed. Okay, here we go. This is, okay, chapter 1 is meant to shock you. But look at me. There is not one thing bad in this book. And in chapter 1, I wanted to grab your attention. Chapter 2, you'll go, oh, okay, I get it. Chapter 3 sets up the plot. Chapter 4, it takes off. Here we go. Chapter 1, board game, a little bit like Jumanji. I titled the first chapter, Don't You Want to Play? And it goes a little bit like this. Wolves were howling on the radio when my dad turned it on. A lady with a soft voice said, "You tuned into K-Wolf. Your Timberwolf forecast starts with a 20% chance of rain." I was sitting in the back seat of our van, and I began drifting off. My eyes heavy, my head heavy, as I listened to this nice lady's voice on the radio, and then my annoying sister to my left. Teasing me like always, I could see more out of the corner of my eye, sitting over there with her right greasy finger, creeping over, and then she would poke me in the side of the neck, whispering, "He's about to fall asleep." I tuned my sister out, and I listened back to the lady on the radio, because her voice sounded a whole lot better than my sister's. When all of a sudden, the van jolted. There was a huge thump under the right side of our van that rocks us to our side. Mom screamed, "Mike, watch out!" Now listen to the words I chose. My eyes slammed open. Watch my dad grab a hold of the wheel. Jerking it to the right, he calls out, "Hold on!" Slamming on the brakes, our van slid to the edge of a trench. "What did you hit?" I asked, searching out the back window. You should have seen the look my sister screams out as she crumbles in her seat. She punches me in the shoulder and asks, "Did you see it?" I asked her, "What?" She stutters, "Bug." As my left eye is cocked at her, my right eye caught something heading towards the van. And as my head spun around to the right, I could hear Mom's voice quivering, "Look at the size of it." I look out the window to the sky. There's this enormous group of bugs, these giant insects that come flying out of the sky and heading right toward us. Dad reaches up and grabs a hold of the gear shift. He throws it down into reverse, flooring it as rocks start shooting far into the distance. My head then spun around to the left to see if my sister saw them. And this is when I noticed her window is halfway down. "Laura," I demanded, "get your window up." As Dad reaches up and grabs a hold of the gear shift, he throws it back into drive. He punches the accelerator, but as the tires are spinning, I'm looking out the window at these insects getting closer and closer and go from flying to suddenly swarming around the van. I'm yelling at my sister, "Get your window up now." Her finger goes down on the button. Huge tears began running down her face. As she said, "They're stabbing at it. It won't go up and stop." This is when I look back at the insects as one of them lands on the left side of the van. And it occurs to me they're half beetle, half scorpion. And as they crawl down the window, crawl down the van, they're also 7 to 10 foot long. Dad realizes the window locks are on, releases the window locks, ordering Laura, "Get your window up now." One of the insects, too late, had a hold of the window and the door. Now is climbing inside the van. As it reaches down and latches onto her left leg. Laura said there screaming, "Luke, get it off me, get it off me." Only I'm sitting in my seat, completely paralyzed in fear. I managed though to help her out with one quick shaky swat, knocking this nasty gross thing off of her. Its spindly leg breaking as it tore from her jeans. But it broke the leg off, and the leg dropped to the floorboard below her feet. Laura screams out again. I remind her, "Quit yelling, it's off you." "Look," she cries out, pointing down. My eyes now skip off of hers and down to the floorboard, where guys, hundreds of little green spiders start crawling out of the bug's broken off legs. Little green spiders just start jumping down onto the carpet. The same little spiders that began lining up in rows and then, like in an army, began marching up my sister's legs. Laura goes into action. She's sitting there screaming and calling out as she's flicking the spiders off of her as much as she could. I sat there completely stunned. I look at my sister, and then I look at Mom and Dad in the front seat, only they're just sitting there staring at each other. Suddenly, I look back there at Laura, and Laura's gone from flicking off the spiders to now slowing them down by pounding them into her jeans with the palms of her hands. Doomed, I turn to the window, horrified at these insects swarming around us, are now beginning to land on us and attach themselves to our van. In fact, they only not attaching themselves to windows. They're ricocheting off as they dive down at us. And as they hit us straight on, green slime is splattering across the windshield. This is when I look out the front and I can see them mounting on the hood, and I knew the roof because our van is being forced down and is wobbling to a crawl. I look back up at Mom and Dad, only they're still staring at each other. I looked down on the floorboard. Spiders were spinning webs around the floorboard. This is when I reach up and I grab my mom's shoulder. Her hand reaches back and covers mine, but she began to squeeze it too tightly. Mom, let go. You squeezed in my hand too tight. This is when she suddenly jerks me forward, and then her head spun around. I look in her eyes, and they are bigger than frisbees. This is when I go limp-faced. Mom gasps. She ducks to the left, and then on her right-hand side, popping out of the seat, is a rotted skeleton. The skeleton then spins around and looks in the back seat. Lurching over the seat, it comes right up in front of the boy's face. And this is how the chapter ends. It says, and through its blackened eyes, I could smell the stench of his bad breath. As it suddenly lowered his head, and then through those hollowed eyes it rasped, "Hey you, don't you want to play?" And then it threw its skull-like head back in a cackle of laughter. That is only chapter 1. If you love scary books, you'll love that book. All right, listen guys, I have to let you go. I've kept you on time. Enjoy your summer. If you get in a book, stay here or a bookmark. I want to meet you. I want to autograph your book. Otherwise, I'll see you all.